Wolf Riders, they're pretty bad. In fact, probably one of the worst units in the game because the only stat they have is speed. And that basically means they can only chase off units and attack completely undefended archers. Like, I'm talking the worst of the worst melee units like Skaven Slaves. If it's anything worth their salt in combat, like, I don't know, a greenskin archer or even worse, dwarf quarrelers, they'll basically do no damage. But I'm a masochist, so we gotta try our best to make this unit look as good as possible on only war mode, which means we're at war with everyone. And Gorbad kind of gives us the tools to get that done. See, one of his battle plans gives plus 32 bonus versus infantry and 75% more damage. And since bonus versus infantry is a flat bonus, I estimate wolf riders probably get like a 8 times damage increase from this ability. Of course, I have to work my way up to this upgrade by recruiting cavalry, and because I'm crazy, I try to make wolf rider armies work before I have the upgrade. And you know, I almost kind of make it work because they are pretty fast, so it's pretty easy getting a full surround. But even then, they're not really winning any awards because really they have like no charge bonus. In fact, I'm pretty sure wolf riders have less charge bonus than normal dog units in the game. It's almost like putting a goblin on a wolf makes it worse or something. And while I can't survive some turns doing this, it's not exactly great when you're at war with every faction because eventually I keep running into armies that just kill me. But after a while, I eventually managed to get Gorbad's optimal start, and you basically gotta disband 3 units at the beginning, start recruiting, and the AI attacks you. And because greenskins have a confederation mechanic when you beat the enemy lord, it's an easy way to secure a tier 3 settlement at the beginning of the game. Then from this early boost, I just spam a ton of recruitment, get the upgrade, get a bunch of redline skill tree buffs to the wolf riders, which increases their charge bonus. And you know what? It's actually not the worst thing in the entire world. Against ogres, the bonus versus infantry doesn't do anything, but the extra 75% damage is enough to take them down with a full surround. And you know what? Even though they basically have no armor piercing, 1 stack of wolf riders does actually manage to kill a full dwarf stack. Basically unheard of in the history of Warhammer, but as long as I keep up the cycle charging and I win the battle in less than 70 seconds before the buff wears off, it almost looks decent. And the army's super cheap too, which is pretty nice. But of course, there are some minor issues, like the fact that I have no balance of power on the battlefield, so nothing gets army lost, and I basically have to fight the enemy to the last. This is because army losses factors in the strength of your army, and because wolf riders are so incredibly cheap and bad, the game thinks it still has a chance against me, even though they're down to like 1 unit. But the wolf riders can still win it, and we take some pretty solid fights against factions that would normally be at least a little bit scary. Like, let's just take a moment here to appreciate how easy it is to wreck Imric's army. This is basically the perfect matchup for wolf riders. It's a bunch of infantry with no armor, and even though they do have spears to negate my charge bonus, I do still have 32 bonus versus infantry, so they still kind of go down pretty fast too. But there are some units that do manage to survive the initial onslaught, like this 1 unit of spears that just gets super blobbed up, and they do get like 100+ kills, which is a little bit bad, especially considering I'm making this unit 8 times better than it should be. But I'm happy to say I made wolf riders at least mildly viable. That is until Gorbad's tactics wear off, and not only that, they also got a cooldown. And because attacks from other factions are a constant ordeal, and my wolf riders are still glass cannons, I eventually get overrun, but not before I manage to confederate Skarsnik and get to try out one of his goblin armies. And that's when I realize, my goodness, my wolf riders are basically as strong as a random tier 1 army made by the AI, and it has like no buffs to speak of. So did we manage to make wolf riders OP? Most definitely not. They're still hot garbage. But if you do buff them as much as possible, they do become about as good as light cavalry. I'd say probably in the range of viable, because remember, they can still kill dwarves, but am I ever going to use them ever again? Probably not. Anyways, if you want to see any more crazy experiments, I stream on the regular 1 p.m. EST on weekdays, and hopefully my next mad experiment manages to find some stronger combos. See you there.